Hello, I'm Diane, and today I want to talk about some of the books coming out in July that I think sound interesting. I have, 12 books to talk about, all fantasy and sci-fi as usual. So let's get right into it. Starting on July 7th, we have Fabulous Bodies by Chuck Tingle. The story follows Poppy Stringer, who is an aspiring fashion influencer by day, and by night she works as a grave robber to make ends meet. And when her hero, the rock star Eddie Michaels, dies, she is hired and offered a very large sum to retrieve his body. If things go according to plan, this could be the last time she ever has to do this. Unfortunately, things don't go as planned, and Eddie wakes up. It's obviously a huge problem for Poppy. It becomes a very dangerous endeavor to get him to wherever she's supposed to bring him. Sounds interesting, sounds dangerous. Also coming out on July 7th is The Inn at the Foot of Mount Vengeance by Kiara Bullen. In this story, Mount Vengeance is this legendary mountain that most adventurers will come to this inn before they try to reach the summit. And we follow our main character, Ainsworth Gladsley, who is a researcher working on a thesis on his way to becoming a historian, and he is sent by his supervisor to this mountain to document the adventurers that go there, as well as the dragon that is said to inhabit the mountain. And when he gets there and stays at this inn, he finds that there doesn't seem to be any evidence that any of the adventurers that come here actually go up the mountain. Most of them seem to arrive, stop at the inn, and then go home after. So he sets out to figure out why this is happening, why no one ever actually goes up the mountain, even though that is why everyone comes there. Sounds like it should be pretty cozy, but also a little bit of mystery as we figure out what's actually going on with this mountain. Also coming out on July 7th is An Infinite Love Story by Chanel Cleaton. This is the story of Joe Mitchell, who is an astronaut, and he is on the next launch into space. However, they lose contact with their ship and believe that everyone has died. Then we see his wife Vivian as she gets the knock on the door, hearing the news about what has happened, or what is assumed to have happened. And in her grief, she relives her life with her husband Joe. And eventually, as she's investigating what happened, trying to figure out what went wrong, and also clear her husband's name of having done anything, some sort of error that caused whatever happened and killed everyone, she starts receiving messages that she is convinced only her husband Joe could be sending her. Though he seems to have vanished and is assumed dead, he's still out there somewhere, and they can somehow be reunited. Then on July 14th, we have The Eye of Leviathan by M.A. Carrick. This is set in an alternate Spanish Golden Age, where we have the Council of the Sea Beyond, which is a Spanish group that has begun exploiting the other world's resources, and we have a character, Esteban, who wants to find out their secrets and figure out what they're really up to, but at the risk of exposing himself as a fairy who has been masquerading as a mortal. We also follow the Hungry Girl, who is the mortal whose place he took, and while she has been lost among the Fae, trying to find her way back or find some purpose in this world, she gets the chance to help a group of the Spanish explorers that are exploring the sea beyond, and becomes horrified at the atrocities that they are committing there. And it will only be together that the both of them can bring down the Spanish and what they're doing to this world and this empire that they have been building that is destroying their homes. Also coming out on July 14th is Misery's Wife by Joan Tierney. This follows our main character, Alexan, who lives in a village that has been ravaged by storms and waves and also an encroaching forest. When she was very young, each of her sisters picked a flower and were whisked away to be married off to separate kings. One of her sisters married the king of air, another married the king of the sea, and her favorite sister married the king of misery. And one day, Alexandre receives a message from a toad that sets her off to find and rescue her favorite sister Doris. To get to her and save her, she is aided by a few companions along the way. She will have to reunite with her other sisters, take help from their magical husbands, and break several unbreakable curses. So it sounds like she has quite the journey between her and her task of saving her sister. Then coming out on July 21st, The Witch Below the Dreaming Wood by H.G. Perry. This book takes place during World War II in Wales. However, here these people have begun dreaming of King Arthur. These dreams have spread like the plague. Night by night, everyone is dreaming about King Arthur. There are also unexplained sightings of dragons in London, strange lights around Stonehenge, and some self-proclaimed prophets are claiming that these are miracles that are heralding Arthur's return when Britain needs him most. In this story, we follow Elaine Ambrose, who is a librarian in London, and she has never had any dreams of Arthur. She doesn't believe in miracles. She doesn't think he's coming to save them. But she does begin dreaming of Nimue, or the Lady of the Lake, and in her dreams, Arthur is not returning to save Britain. Instead, it is a vision of the return to the darkness in the last days of Camelot. And though she's tried to ignore these dreams and what they might mean, Ellie eventually realizes that she has to confront whatever is happening. Also coming out on July 21st is Mudlark by Mary Helen Specht. The story follows Jenny Sweet, whose marriage is ending, and with it, potentially her relationship with her 13-year-old daughter Nico. And Jenny has planned to go on a journey of self-discovery after doing one more gig at Burning Man. However, at the festival, her daughter disappears. Jenny's priorities, of course, shift, and she is desperately trying to find her daughter before anything bad happens. Then we follow Nico when she is 25 and she has become a mudlark, which are trained recruits that search the flooded Manhattan for resources amongst the rival factions that are now there. And while she is scavenging for resources in the crumbling buildings, she finds a master of her mother's solo album and also discovers that someone else is looking for this album. Someone who she thinks might be her mother, who has now been missing for over a decade. So we follow her on her adventure of tracking down whoever it is that's looking for this album and eventually, hopefully, finding out what actually happened to her mother. Then coming out on July 28th is Harbour of Hungry Ghosts by Eliza Chan. This follows Kam Ling, who is the eldest daughter of the Au family, and their family serve the people of Hong Kong, blessing shrines, honoring the dead, and dealing with dangerous monsters. When the British disrupt the Hungry Ghost Festival, her mother is taken by a monster, and Kam Ling is the one to lead the search for her with the aid of a civil servant, her ex-boyfriend who is now a merchant pirate, and her younger sister. This is a strange new monster, and Kam Ling needs to figure out who is behind this and how to defeat them. Hopefully save her grandmother. Also coming out on July 28th is A Tangled Magic by Andrea Eames. This follows Netta, who has only ever lived in the tower with her mother, who has spent decades working on her masterpiece, this spellbook of unspeakable powers. Her only companions have been her long red hair, which seems to move of its own accord and have some sort of magical powers, and also a telepathic raven called Baldbeak. However, the tower is attacked, and after that, her mother and the spellbook vanish, so Netta ventures out into the kingdom for the first time to try and find her. The kingdom, however, is on the brink of a civil war. The monarch is dying, and there are fanatics and nobles who are plotting to take the throne. And for some reason, they all seem to be seeking out Netta and the magic of her hair. Netta explores this world for the first time while encountering a few people and never really knowing who she can trust, and through it all she needs to untangle what's going on to find her mother and also uncover the magic of her hair and why it is so highly coveted by all of these people. Also coming out on July 28th is The Demon Star by Jesse Aragon. This follows Ysara Nactus, who is chosen as a human sacrifice, but unlike the thousands who are harvested each year, she survived. Then when her son is chosen for demonic possession, she has to make the choice to either allow him to harness some cosmic power that will have an unspeakable cost, or to do millions by saving him. She finds an unlikely ally in a gifted exorcist who is now an addict who's desperate for a purpose, Together, they must deal with demons, cultists, aliens, and gods as they unearth new truths and go down a path that seems to be leading directly to the apocalypse. And the last book I have to talk about, also coming out on July 28th, is Affairs of State by Calvin James. In this story, we have the supply officer, LeVar Boylan, who is pulled from the front lines to take part in peace talks with the Empire, all because he used to date the Baroness. When he arrives, he finds that his former lover, Astrid, is now the Demon Emperor, and they're still attracted to each other. Because of their now very complicated relationship and situation, LeVar's superiors are concerned that he is no longer loyal to them. Astrid is hoping he's going to abandon his commonwealth to become an imperial noble, and LeVar must navigate the feelings and the politics of it all while dodging assassins, kidnappers, and decide how he might save his country, potentially his love, and also his life at the end of it all. I feel like the beginning of the year was pretty slow with new releases that I was really excited about, and this summer, especially over the next few months, there are a lot of things coming out that I think sound really fun and interesting. Hopefully I'll read as many of them as I can. We'll see how many I actually get to or how long it takes me to get to them. Let me know what you're looking forward to that's coming out in July, whether it's one of these or something else. Otherwise, that's all for me today. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you next time. Bye.